Good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me here. As you've heard, I've just come here to share my personal experience and my witness of the power of nonviolence in breaking chains of violence and also creating spaces for people affected by the violence to work for their own peace. And as you've heard, for more than a decade, I've been working in areas affected by prolonged war. And I will share my experience first in northern Kenya because there is where I spent most of my life, most of my time as peace builder. Northern part of Kenya is inhabited by pastoralist communities. And this region, these pastoralist communities been in violent conflict for many, many years. And when I went to this region, especially in 2009, the area Masambit, the area which Kenya borders Ethiopia to the north, it was recovering from Tubi massacre. And Tubi massacre had killed within a very short time 71 people, including young children and school pupils. And everywhere, over 10 ethnic groups were fighting with each other. So I went there with a team of Peace and Justice Commission from Tangaza University to support in peace building for 1 week. And when we went there, it was so confusing because each ethnic group was fighting with each other, especially where they border. And then after that experience, I decided to go back and support the diocese in building a culture of peace in that region. And then I decided to focus on the Rendile and Borana conflict in that region. These two ethnic groups had been fighting for a very long time. And people had internalized this war, and many people had lost hope in living in a peaceful environment. I remember when I went there, whatever I asked the children their dreams, the children could tell me, I want to grow up, go and kill the other people from the other community. Like if I was asking the Rendires, I'll go and kill the Borana and bring back our livestock. And there is nothing they saw good in their world about the other ethnic group. The other ethnic group was an enemy, and that is how they perceived each other. And this is what I remember one young boy told me, since we were born, we were socialized to know the other ethnic group like the Mborano, the Rendile as our enemies. So that is how they grew up with that mentality. There is nothing good with the other ethnic group. I remember even one time I tried to ask, I was teaching young children age below 10 years about that passage in the Bible about love of the enemy. And I wanted to explain the meaning of the word enemy so that they can understand. And I asked them first, who is an enemy? And immediately, actually, I had around 40 young people. They all said they were Rendires. Borana is an enemy. So that is the world where I went into. The community where they had many people had been born in war, growing in war, and now they were entering in war. And it was difficult for me to know where I can start in this kind of a situation. And people had lost hope of living in any peaceful environment. And the biggest mistake was to mention to people anything to do with peace. I remember when I went there, I went to a certain community with a chief, and I said that I'm a peace builder. The meeting almost ended at that particular point. And one elder asked me, whom do you think you are? We have so many NGOs have come to our region with so big vehicles. You are just come walking, and you tell us you're going to bring peace in our region. And it was impossible to do that. And then out of my experience, first, northern part of Kenya is a patriarchal society. Women are nobody. Women cannot speak in front of an elder. And I, being a woman, going to this community was a big challenge. However, I had first to spend time inserting myself, creating relationship with the people at the grassroots. And lucky enough, I was accepted by the people. And after being accepted, I also participated in a lot of peace meetings where some many NGOs were coming and the government. And there was a lot of peace workshops. And I felt that peace workshops will never bring peace to this region. These people will gain peace if they take the first lead themselves to work for their own peace. And the biggest question is, how do people who have been born in war, they have never seen peace, they see each other as an enemy, work for their own peace? That was the biggest challenge. And then it is there where I saw the power of nonviolence. Because as Paulo Freire says, when people are suffering, stays in that particular suffering for a very long time, they internalize that problem and they see as if it is a normal, it is part of their life. So these people had seen violence as part of their life. And they had internalized it and made it part of their life. That is what I mean. And then it was a process of creating that awareness of their potential to work for their own peace. And then how could enemies work for their own peace? I encountered a friend of mine from Germany who supported me in training these people in nonviolence communication. But they couldn't, those who know nonviolence communication, these people couldn't understand the concept in nonviolence communication. But there was something very powerful. Creating spaces where these people could face each other as human beings. And that journey is the one which supported the people to be able to face each other. I remember we took the keen decision makers in the grassroots communities in a place where they could sit, both the two ethnic groups, the Boranas and the Rendires. And they could face each other. They could listen to one another. And then it was surprising for them to realize each team wanted peace. Whenever they went for meetings, they were blaming each other for the violence. But through this process of taking them to a safe space where they could face each other as human beings, not as enemies, they were able to sit down and dialogue. And I remember we spent a week with these elders. And when we went back at home, this was the key. It was the entry point of peace getting into these particular communities. These elders, they went back to their homes as a team. And I remember one time I was going with the elders from one community, and children could, I remember we were among the Rendires, children could stop and wonder what, they have never seen a Rendire and a Borana elder together. How comes these people are working together? It was like, I mean, for them, it was a big shock. And these elders we moved together. We did not have money to have these cars or what. We moved from village to village with these elders, asking people to unite and work for their own peace. And I remember it was during a terrible drought in Kenya in 2010, 2011. And one elder spotted a well, a shallow well, where so many people had been killed because maybe they are trying to water their livestock, and that is where people were waiting to kill the enemy from that point. And then decided, we are going to renovate this as a team. And as we renovate it, it was now because to bring other people to the other community to face each other as human beings. And that is how people started taking their own initiative and only building the relationship. It was from there they started talking to one another. They started reconnecting with one another. And I remember they started sharing gifts. Some could come with milk, others could come with vegetables. They made a lot of friends when they were working and digging at this well. And then there was a one big question in the society. The women, the elders have come together. What about the young people? In these communities, we have young people. We call them the Morans. Some of them go to school and others don't go to school. And those who don't go to school, they are the key perpetrators of the violence. They are the key warriors. So what happened? These key warriors, they don't culturally, Morans or warriors, they don't interact with women. They don't interact even in the sitting of other people. They spend most of their time in the bush. Those who have been in with pastoralist groups, you might know these teams. And I think those who have been following the history of Kenya, you remember they killed over 60-something police. And many, when you look at now in some parts of Kenya, like the Rift Valley, so military are being sent to deal with these young people because they are very badly armed. But I noticed non-violence can disarm people as well. What I did is I tried to create a relationship with these warriors. I identified the key perpetrators, the ones who were influential because they are very well organized. They have their team. And because many of them have not gone to school, I was trying to teach them in the evening when they bring their livestock back. And this was a channel for me to build a relationship with the Morans or the warriors. And I tried to build, actually, thank God, I managed to build relationship with the key perpetrators. And one thing was, I saw them as brothers, but not killers. They were my brothers. And I accepted them the way they were. I slept most of the time in the bushes with them. And because of this, creating this kind of relationship, I managed to bring, with the help of the elders and some community members, we brought also the Morans together. And I remember when we brought the Morans or the warriors together, is the first thing they did is, I remember the first thing when we brought the Morans together, they did not accept to sit together. Some came with their guns. And they did not face each other, they faced a different direction. So with the help of some elders who had already interacted before, we managed to bring the Morans together. They managed to share their stories with the Morans, because the world of Morans is being in the forest, responsibility of bringing livestock, going to raid, going to do revenge mission. And these are the young people who are used by either politicians or anybody who want to commit or to kill or to cause violence. They could use the Morans. So when they started talking, they confessed they have never in their life faced Morans of the other community. They said they only face each other in the forest when they are fighting. And it was funny, after sharing a lot, and they accepted to talk to each other. We had a sharing of meals. We shared, we served food, and they were sharing in the same plate. And most of them, those who know Kenya, Swahili is our national language, which unites us together. So some of them never even knew Swahili, because they have never gone to school. They have never been exposed in a different societies. They've been mostly in the bush with the livestock. But this time, two Morans who never knew Swahili recognized each other. And we noticed that the one from one ethnic group was the key leader of the Morans of the Rendires. And one time they almost killed one another in the fighting. And it was funny, they accepted to become friends. And these two Morans were very key in creating spaces for other Morans to come together. So what sometimes when we go to communities affected by war, people think when you go and start peace building, people will begin. Before starting the work, I noticed it's a very long process for these people to be able to work for their own peace, creating spaces which will support them rebuild their relationship, creating spaces where they will be able to connect with one another. And it is from this connection with one another, like when these Morans connected, a small group, I was doing a very small group, and then the community could now enlarge and continue doing the other. I was just acting as a bridge and doing very ordinary things like walking from village to village with the Morans. But it was very powerful in terms of building relationship, in terms of rebuilding relationship. It reached a place where the Morans told me, please don't bring women to us. Then I reminded them, I am also a woman. And then they told me, no, 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 no. Yourself, you are our madam, but don't bring other women, because as I told you, culturally Moran don't interact with women. So one thing I learned from here is the insertion was very powerful. Myself creating relationship with the local people, and also creating spaces where these local people could do what? Could also create a relationship. And then after this, they managed to connect with each other. It is there where grassroots people took the initiative and started working for their own peace. I remember the elders, as they continued interacting with women and other men in the village, these Morans, they took the initiative of also joining Morans from the other villages. And I remember many instances where the Morans could prevent other Morans from going to raid, because raiding is their culture. And raiding triggers the violence and a lot of killings. And it is through this, many Morans became channels for peace among their own Morans. And fun enough, the young people now we have also the youth who have gone to school. They took the initiative, they told me, they only want me to be part of them. And they took the responsibility, because I was using some of them to bring children from one ethnic group, the different ethnic group together, just to have sports and have fun together, to reduce those stereotypes, you know. So the young people also started their own initiative of using football, using sports. They could come together and play sports for almost 15 years. Sorry, 15 days. Today they will play in Amborana community, tomorrow in a Rendira community. And wherever they went, they could ask their parents to put maybe if they food, because they picked somebody from other ethnic group and they went to share food together. So these kind of sports brought a lot of change in the community. It was connecting people in the community. And then the other thing which connected people is I also managed to meet the grassroots religious leaders, Catholics, Protestant, Muslims, and all of them. And after because they are so powerful. Religion was not dividing people. Religion was a source of unity there. You could find in this community they are Catholics, and the other community they are Catholics. So, and they were served by the same priest. You could find also there are Muslims in this community, and the other side there were Muslims. So that was a powerful tool to unite people. So what we did is we decided these grassroots people, leaders, that we will be having once a month, we'll be praying together. I remember the Catholic Bishop of Mozambique was always presiding Mass for the interreligious worship. And we could pray together, we could eat together, and that could build connection. So out of this experience, the grassroots people started their own initiatives, especially of kind of rebuilding their relationship, rebuilding connections together. And after some time, these people were each community were using their means of transport, and they were not trading. And the people started trading together. People started farming, especially the IDP where I went to stay, where I was living. People went back to their farms. They started cultivating. I remember in 2013, I'll never forget, they harvested a lot of food and they contributed some sacks of maize to other regions which had not harvested any food. And I also remember the people started trading together. You could find a lot of rendires selling milk to the Boranas because most of the milk came from the rendires, and Boranas selling vegetables to the rendires. And you see them using the same means of transport. And it was good and enjoyable to see actually the marriages started to now we have some people, rendires married among the Boranas and Boranas married among the rendires. This is after a long time, it's not a short-term process. After 10 years, because I've been there for more than 10 years. So it is through this interaction where people started now working for their own peace. And I remember also in 2013, those who remember, there was a conflict in the border of Kenya and Ethiopia, Moyale. But this region, politicians tried to incite the people, but they refused. So, and up to this time, these people, what I liked most is they became antivisors of NGOs and the government initiatives. They have been antivising the government. They have been advising the government on the best methods to use in order to bring peace there. I remember those who know Kenya was in fire in 2019, 2020. Most of the people in these regions are the one who spearheaded meetings where they brought a lot of interaction among other ethnic groups which are fighting, especially Borana and the Gabra. So these people started this initiative and they started advising the NGOs on the best method of working and bringing peace in their region. So what I learned is in these war situations, people leave the peace initiatives to the NGOs. They don't take part. Mostly they wait. And some commercialize the peace building. But after creating spaces and creating spaces where people will become agents of their own peace, it becomes a very powerful tool because they will not wait for an NGO. They will not wait for any money. I worked mostly 90% of the work without any single cent. And I worked with the people very informally because sometimes even NGOs couldn't fund us. I couldn't get any money from NGOs because the way I was doing was not fitting in their category. But it was very powerful. Just walking, going to stay somewhere under a tree with the people and connecting with one another. So I learned non-violence is very powerful. When people face each other as human beings. And I remember one Moran, I took them for driving school and he came to ask me, what is the use of this gun, madam? I don't need it anymore. Now I stopped going to the livestock, I'm going to do cultivation. I'm going to use different skills now to earn my living. So this was my experience at the grassroots. And this is what I saw people do. Take responsibility to build. And up to this time, people have continued to do that work in my absence. Young people, I remember there is one girl now, she has finished university. When I went there, she was a very young girl. I journeyed with her and she became a peace ambassador after Form 4. And I was so happy. She invited me several times. She went to teach Borana. She was a rendire. And she started even bringing children from different communities together. And we are very hopeful now because most of these young people whom we are journeying with now have finished universities, colleges. We are hopeful that they will continue this process and they have changed. I tease them with the mindset they were telling me when they were young, because they told me I'm going to kill the Borana and bring my livestock. Up to this time, I'm connected with these young people. And I asked them, are you still going to kill the Borana? But you find when they are here in Nairobi, they are friends, they are working together, and that gives me a lot of joy. And this is the power of the people. If they are given spaces to work for their own peace, not people coming to work for them, although it is a very long process and a process which calls not for money, because peace has been commercialized. And if you go with a lot of money, they focus on the money and you forget the work. But if people get the opportunity to work for their own peace, that peace will be sustained. And that is what I've seen from my experience working in northern Kenya and also now working in other parts of Kenya and also outside Kenya. So I think I stop at that. And in case of any question or even addition, probably later on we'll connect. So thank you so much. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Kanini. And we'll, as you said, we'll take questions after the sisters have had their turn to present. So we'll turn it over to the sisters. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. I hope this will work. There we go. Can you see that? Okay. So good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here with you all, and thank you so much for inviting us to share with you about our experiences in Kenya. We were really privileged to learn so much from the Kenyan people who taught us in concrete ways about transformation and reconciliation. So today we would like to share with you about our program entitled Conversation for Social Change. Let me move this down a little. Okay, here we go. So today I'm going to talk about some historical context of how when we came to Kenya, what we found, what we observed, and then we're going to talking about our program, Conversation for Social Change, that started in 2008 and it's still ongoing, and the impacts and the insights we've gained from our work in Kenya. So a little historical context. When we came in 2006, we started learning more. We realized that every general election, which is a 5-year cycle in Kenya, there's tension and some conflict that happens. And then our first experience of that occurred in 2008. The general election was 2007 in December, and that was really the flashpoint where negative ethnicity-based conflict came into play, and we saw it in a dramatic way. So we started our program in January of 2008, and it continues to be, this is the context that tension arise around election time, and ethnic partisanship plays an important role. So to give you a little bit of understanding of where we came from, the Maryknoll Sisters Peace Team, we came together, we went to Kenya in 2006 as a team, and our intention always was to start working with ourselves, first of all, knowing ourselves, and then learn how to interact with each other within our own community, one person being Tanzanian background, myself being Vietnamese American, and the other sister is European American. So we know that we needed to work on that amongst ourselves, so within our community. And we wanted our work with ourselves to inform how we're going to work in the society. And that was how we started out. In 2007, We started working earnestly with NGOs and mainly peace building networks. So we work with these different peace NGO, FAMIC, PeaceNet, Peacetree. FAN is I think a Norwegian peace building organization, NGO. And they invited us after a few meetings with them to become the secretariat to build an umbrella group, to build a coalition where we could, where they could work together and work out of a value-added model instead of a competitive model. Unfortunately, it became clear to us after 1 year that partisanship, ethnic partisanship, operates within the peace building community as well. So then we redirected our attention to what became our Conversations for Social Change program that we wrote up at the end of 2007. And then we started the meetings in 2008. And this year also was when we saw the post-election violence. Like I said before, it really was the year where the flashpoint conflict based on ethnic differences showed itself very clearly. So Conversations for Social Change is a program that we started in 2008, and the principles are based on nonviolence, diversity, spirituality, and service. And the goals and objectives. So I want to say also the diversity here is age, religion, ethnicity, etc. Socioeconomic background. We try to invite people into a group as diverse as possible. And the goal of this program is to provide a process for personal transformation. And we wanted to create a safe space where people can talk to one another, as well as be able to share what they can. And also it involves changing, becoming aware of our own mental model. We wanted to change the mental model from differences or negative differences to interconnectedness and interdependence as perceived through the lens of spirituality and nonviolence, service and diversity. We wanted to build energy through this program for nonviolent social change. The structure of the program is based on a series of conversations from 4 to 6 months. And the group size, we kept it small deliberately because we wanted people to build relationship. And the reason for the series of conversation, we wanted people to come and talk and speak from their own personal experiences, and then go back and reflect on what they've heard from other people, and then come back again for the second conversation. So we deliberately set time in between so people can have time to reflect and come back and re-engage with one another. We usually have several groups running simultaneously, and this culminates in a 2-day retreat where all the groups come together and share their knowing and their learnings from their conversation within the small group. At the end of it all, we have an evaluation of the program. We interview individuals, and then we come at the very end, we come together in what we call a town hall meeting for participants to discuss a way forward. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to my companion, Teresa. Teresa?
It's on mute. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. So you might be wondering why we say it's a program of personal transformation when it's called Conversations for Social Change. We really believe that the society can't change unless each one of us goes through some type of transformation to change our mental models, to change our perspective and see others' view. There were several impacts on 3 different levels of this program: the intrapersonal level, the interpersonal level, and the communal. So I'll go through all of those. On the intrapersonal level, or the individual experience, we interviewed each person following the program to measure the impact. The 2 significant markers in those interviews was the experience of silence and learning to listen. By sitting in silence for 5 minutes before and after the conversation, we introduced a way into meditation, a way to slow down or stop the chatter inside your head or outside. For some, the silence was initially disorienting. One fellow expressed his discomfort of the silence at the very first meeting. After the program, he told us since the post-election violence in 2008, so this was over a 2-year period because we were working with him in 2010. He had been living alone and did not like going home to be by himself. So he would stop every night at a bar and drink. And he'd drink until he could go home and just fall asleep. He was numbing himself with alcohol. By the end of the 6 conversations we had, because of the practice of silence, he was able now to go home and be with himself in the house, no longer needing to go to the bar. 90% of the participants indicated to us that they had learned to listen better. Family lives shifted or work performance improved because they were able to listen better to others. For women, many were able to find their voice. Because we require, or we ask each participant in the conversations to speak, and to speak from their own perspective, women and men alike had the space to voice their thoughts and their concerns, and most importantly, to hear themselves speak. At the end of the first year, we chose 4 participants to work with us as facilitators. We shared with them our principles, our methods, and our philosophy. And they learned in the process just as we did each time we facilitated. We have trained and worked with about 15 facilitators in Molo and in Nairobi. So when we hold a conversation, we invite, like Zhang said, 8 to 12 people in a circle, and we facilitate it. We begin with 5 minutes of silence. And then we ask people to share from their own perspective. Each person shares first, and then we pause, and then we open the conversation. So people have an opportunity to hear other people coming from a different perspective. On the interpersonal level, we found reconciliation and civic participation and relationship building. One of the participants shared his story with us. He had come to our program with the intention of getting close to one person of the enemy tribe and plotting to kill him. He didn't have anybody in particular in mind. He was just going to find one and become close to him. But as he began to hear what others were sharing, he listened, he recognized them, and his heart was changed. He became good friends with another participant, a member of the so-called enemy tribe. Today, they are good friends and both effective leaders in their community. Later, that same man told us that several agencies and social workers had tried to help him heal his trauma. But it was only by participating in our conversation program that he could learn to rebuild relationships. So we've found over the several iterations of this program that we've done, we've worked with over 400 people in Kenya at this point in about 4 different places in the Rift Valley, Nairobi, Tana Delta, and Kisumu. But we found that the participants would take what they were learning from our program, the listening skills, the speaking their own truth, looking for common good, and began using these learnings in other gatherings, community meetings, town halls, and peace building gatherings. Other agencies and government leaders took note and began calling on the people who had participated in our program. Our aim was not to train people, but to give people skills that they could use in their communities and their daily living to live peacefully and in harmony. This sounds a little bit like what Elizabeth was talking about, people being able to make peace themselves. On the communal level, we found a deeper experience in our program. We designed the program for social change, but in the context of post-election violence, the program created space for social healing. Molo is an area in the Rift Valley which is known for experiencing the worst violence in every election cycle. It is the breadbasket of Kenya, a rich, fertile area for crops and cattle. The Kalenjins and the Kikuyu people inhabited that area across the Rift Valley. And every election they would kill each other, stealing the land and their cattle. We had conversations there in 2010, 2011, and 2012, engaging over 120 people in those 3 years. In 2013, the next election, it was reported in the Daily Nation, the national newspaper, that Molo had turned the corner on post-election violence. That year, there were only a few random killings and no massacres or raids. The participants from the first 3 years in Molo created their own network and established a community-based organization to promote peace and care for each other and their neighbors. And I believe they still continue to do that. They also, those people that created that network also continued with us to provide the program in Molo as our facilitators. In 2012, before the 2013 election, violence broke out in Tana Delta along the east coast of Kenya. In fact, when we were in Molo before that same year, one of the people says, "You don't need to be here anymore. You should be working in Tana Delta." So we traveled to Tana Delta. There, 8 villages were involved in the conflict over a 6-month period. The primary conflict was between the Orma people, who are pastoralists, and the Pokomo people, who are farmers. The conflict was about access to the Tana River for the cattle and destruction of crops by the cows. The majority of the people were Muslims, with a small percentage of Christians in 2 villages. We traveled to Tana Delta from Nairobi between May of 2013 and April 2014. We began by exploring the situation there. We spent 2 months meeting with the people, talking to the people in the diocese. We went through the Diocese of Malindi, and we went out to the villages and met with the people to present our program and invite them into it. It was primarily between these 2 ethnic groups, Pokomos and Orma, but our program invites all people involved in the area. So we involved all the other ethnic groups in the area who were store owners, farmers, because the impact of the conflict affected them as well. So they also had to were invited to participate. There was one village called Kililingwani that had experienced the worst of the violence. Kililingwani was a village of Pacomo and Orma, divided into two ethnic neighborhoods with the shared school buildings in the middle. Over 50 Orma people were killed, and all the houses for the Orma neighborhood were burned to the ground. The victims had sought refuge in the school buildings, which had historically been a sanctuary space. The Pacomo perpetrators went into the school and killed the people there. Our program spanned the Tana Delta. People from all 8 villages participated. Kililingwani was the one village that had not returned to shared life among the people during our program. As we came to the end of the program and most villages had returned to normal shared life, the imam from Kililingwani asked us to come and reconcile their village. We agreed to sit with the people to hear from them. Following our conversations protocol, we sat with the women on both sides and listened to their stories and their desires. They wanted peace. We invited them to go home and tell their husbands what they wanted, as we would be meeting with the men the next day. We met with the men on both sides, and the day began with tension. A young man cried out in anger, and the village leader hushed him. The young man was visibly upset. It was indicated to us that one of the perpetrators was present in the group. The conversation was halted mid-morning when thunder struck and rain poured down from the sky. We could not hear each other as the rain fell on the tin roof. During that break, the imam called for prayer in the next room, and we waited out the rain. When it subsided, the men came back to the room to continue the conversation. The tension had broken, and they quickly moved to resolution. We were informed by the people that it had not rained like that for 18 months, which was before the conflict. The rain was certainly a blessing. We have learned in our years of doing this program to always be open to surprise and to be open to God's intervention. We planned the next day for a community celebration and resolution, and we walked from one side of the village to the other. The imam, in his interview with us after the program, said resolutely, "God brought you to us." And we responded by saying, God had gifted us with the opportunity to be with them through this process. Even as the people participating in the Conversations program find healing, peace, and courage, so are we changed with each group we work with. So now I'll ask Sia to continue.
Thank you, Elizabeth, Zhang, and Teresa. So I continue with the Conversations for Social Change. And my part is to share some of the insights which you have heard some. So one of which I would say, Conversations for Social Change aligns with the synodal process or the synodal approach. For those who are here who are from the Catholic Church, we are aware of synod or synodality. So Conversations for Social Change reflect that. You know, it promotes open dialogue, respect listening, and foster the inclusive participation. So every voice counts. As you have heard with conflict, if you leave any voice out, you're creating more conflict. It has been applied in different groups and communities, and we can still do that. It has been applied in families, in church settings, in groups, in schools, and in the broader community gatherings. It does encourage slowing down and creating a space to hear what the other person is sharing. And therefore, through that, it fosters collective wisdom. Conversations for Social Change program has created a space where empowerment and inclusion have happened, especially for some of us, or most of us in patriarchal societies. We know it's hard for women to share from their heart. But Conversations for Social Change has been able to empower them to create that space. Sometimes in a group where even many are there, they will voice out what is going on, but also they have been able to create their own meetings, have dialogues, have a meaningful conversation for what matters for them, and therefore be able to speak as one voice. And this has happened in many settings we have, one of it being in Sirikwa, in Molo. Another one I will say in Kilelengwani, where Teresa just shared. Actually, we had to have a group conversation with the women first, and because they say we want to reconcile, but you need to talk to our men. It has helped in conflict transformation and cultural interventions, because sometimes conflict happen because of different values. And one good example is in 2022 and 2023 in Kenya, the government, and it has been there, they are against female circumcision. However, in this one particular area in Lare, among the Kalenjins, they were actually forcing women to be circumcised, the older women, being the reason that if they are not circumcised and their sons go for circumcision, they cannot cook for them. So some of the women who decided to do that voluntarily, there was a clash. There was a conflict. They were arrested by the government because they went against the government order. So some of the conversation facilitators had to intervene and had a conversation to see how they could resolve that conflict of cultural norms and the government orders. The same thing has happened within the church. Sometimes there are clash between the church norms or the church directives and the cultural norms, and therefore they have used the conversations to have a understanding among the two groups. It has helped in transforming people, as you have heard from the beginning. It's a social transformation program, but for transformation to happen, it has to start with the individual. And once an individual is transformed, it will have a ripple effect in the community. And this has happened through the participants. So they take it to their own family, to the workplace, to the village, to the farms, to the market. And therefore, it does help in de-escalating the violence and transforming the conflict in to become something which is collectively supporting one another and building a space where they can all own. This personal change, as I said, has have that ripple effect which brings influence in the wider society. It has the impact of social recognitions. Teresa mentioned this, and this has been so much, especially in Molo, that since they are in the community recognized them, the participant as well as the facilitators. So when there is any gatherings, they will call them. They say, those who have gone through the Conversations for Social Change are the peacemakers in the community. If you are here, please say a word, say something. So they have been trusted as facilitators in the community settings. And also when there is any gathering, they recognize their wisdom. Next slide. Just in a quick, we'll give this one case study. You have heard from Kanini that it does take time to really reconcile people or building the relationship. You heard when Teresa and Zang were sharing that we created that space purposely and we keep coming back and back because it takes time. One of the things we recognized when we were preparing this program is how do we bring the communities to share their best practices? So this one particular example, because Molo went through a lot of violences for many years during election violences, when each time they have election, there was violence. So when it happens in Tana Delta, after 3 meetings, we felt it would be necessary and helpful to bring some participants from Molo to share their own stories with the people of Tana Delta, and they did. And I can really say that that shifted some of those who were harboring revenge, realizing that from what they heard from the participants from Molo, revenge made them lose more people in their family, in their community, and actually increased their wounds instead of healing it. And therefore, this helped the people in Tana Delta, those who were harboring revenge, actually to start softening, to realize that revenge won't happen. And for me, that I will say it's one of the good examples that bringing people to share their own stories. Then when opportunity arises after we have finished the conversations in Tana Delta, we also brought some people from Tana Delta to visit Molo. Actually, were the facilitators from Molo who invited them. Say, come, when you come to Nairobi, come visit us. Again, they learn something and the bond continues. Next slide. And so again, going to applications, conversation for social change can be applied in so many different settings as we have heard. It can be applied in our own families, in any kind of workshop you are doing your facilitation. You just have to remember that and create that space. In any society, we can use this. And I said, we can use US as an example today that it is relevant for any diverse and polarized context. I don't know which context today which is not polarized. Some might be more than the other, but for me, I say that once we create the space to hear from each other, once we want to build the bridges, once we want to promote the listening, for the communities to be together, to create that safety and harmony, it is possible. And lastly, but not least, it's really the core is relationship building. At the heart of conversation for social change is about nurturing meaningful conversations, but not for just meaningful conversations, for relationship, for fostering relationship, respect, trust, and a sense of shared responsibility for the common good. So thank you for listening. That is what I had to share with you, and now we're here for the questions and comments.
So I think anybody's free to either write in the chat your questions or comments, or if you can raise your hand with the little thing, then we know that you want to ask a question. With the little reactor thing at the bottom, you raise your hand like that.
Maybe you don't have a question or you just want to make a comment. We welcome that also. Yes, Duncan. And then Pei.
Duncan, you're muted.
Thanks, Teresa. Thank you, everyone, for your presentations. I was struck by that moment when you talked about the person getting really upset because they saw the perpetrator there in the gathering. And I'm wondering if you can just speak to the role of a facilitator, because I hear how this can be used in different contexts, but I'm just wondering like how you actually diffuse and like what norms are set and how you enforce them and what you do if someone's not willing to abide by those norms?
For us, what we did in our program, we began with what we call agreements. We called people to speak from their own personal perspective, to speak briefly. So and that it would all be confidence. It's all part of creating the space, and I think that was essential into giving the facilitator some validity and being able to hold the space, so that when that happened, I think Zhang was facilitating at the time, but all three of us were present. It was to really just call them back to the space. And the elders were helpful as well. Every participant knew why they were there and how they wanted to be, but we called them back to the agreements and asked them to have trust in each other and to continue the conversation.
And I just want to add that it's really the group that holds the safety for everyone, not the facilitators. We have a process that we will try to move along, but because the program is over a period of time, the relationship builds, the bond builds. So it's really the group stepping up, taking leadership to hold safety for everyone. So I want to say that it was the Kenyan people themselves, not us. So Peg, I saw your hand up. Do you still have something to say? And then Regina.
Still muted.
How's
Okay.
that? Good job. Okay. Thank you for such a meaningful, needed process right now, especially as I'm thinking of my own country here. I guess my question is how to invite people into the conversation, because folks need to want to change. Or what is it that would raise one's wanting to participate in such a conversation? I'm here staying with my brother and neighbors and stuff, and it's just amazing to hear two sides. And how does one invite the other to see the other as human, to see the other as just as fearful and wanting change? But how do you go about finding people for such a wonderful program? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Peg. I would respond by saying that the way we started, it began with ourselves. We start by practicing it among ourselves, and then we start inviting our friends and the people we know. And slowly we had that courage saying that let's invite people. And by the way, we usually start with like a page of reading, and the first one usually it's beginning a conversation. So I said it starts with us. It just starts with that desire you have. Start in your family, invite your neighbor, learn to listen when the others is speaking. So that's what I will say. Others may add if there's something I missed.
With our program, I just add this real quick. With our program, we intentionally met with each person before we began, and got their buy-in really to what we were looking at, because we believe there's a group of people in every society that wants change, and that's who we're looking for. And we explain what we're going to do in the program, and we get their commitment to come and participate and seek change.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Regina. And then we also have a question in chat, which I can share later. Regina, please go.
Thank you. For me, it is a wow. I'm just commending you for your resilience and the energy. Such places, many people fear to go there. And I want to commend you for that. You see, you know, that's For me, that's really witnessing the gospel values. And I think I appreciate what you've been doing. I'm just so encouraged. And that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a question in chat, and I want to address that before we ask Mary Elizabeth to speak. There's a question about what can be done to tackle such mega conflict between the government and groups like Gen Z as what people are experiencing today in Kenya, from Hezron. So I think this one we can talk, Elizabeth, I'd like to invite you as well to respond, if you would like to.
Yeah, and greetings. For me, this conflict between the government of Kenya and the Gen Z, it's a very complex conflict. It's not really conflict, but because there are a lot of factors in it. For me, it is a potential in the country. And for us to reconcile the two, I'm not sure whether there will be an opportunity to reconcile the two. But if agents of change within Kenya can take the opportunity and capacity build the young people with the necessary skills.
Kanini, you got muted.
Sorry about that. I thought I was, is it okay now?
Yes.
Yes. You ended at the capacity building.
Pole. So I was saying this is, for me, is a force and a powerful tool for change. The young people are ready to bring change. The only thing which I would say is the agents of change can take the opportunity to capacity build the young people to embrace non-violence method, especially where violence is being used, insults and things like that. And with that, it's not about reconciling the young people with the government, but empowering the young people to challenge the injustices being committed by the government, corruption, and so on. That's what I would say about this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mary Elizabeth, and then Bridge.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My curiosity is about the man who came to the session intending to get close to another man and then kill him. At what point did you become aware of his intentions? And did you treat him any differently during the sessions?
We actually didn't know until the interview, until after the program ended and we did the evaluation and, interview each individual. And that came to light when he said he changed. And that was, that really shocked us. Yes.
Did that scare you?
No.
When
Go ahead, Sia.
No. When we went to Molo the first time, we knew that we were going into a different situation than Nairobi, where we had been working. And of course, our awareness was on high alert, and there was tension in every conversation that we began. But we just continued to hold the space and watch people, and they just came. They continued to come and participate. Sia, did you have something to add?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that in the meetings, you can really feel the tension, but the point is to sit with that tension and not trying to change it, because everybody feels it. And then as we continue, since it's the series of 6 meetings, once a month, So each time you come, something shifts. And that's what we say, it's beyond our power. Ours was just to hold that space and trust. And everybody, each time we remind people of the agreement, we started the same way. And I think that helps slowly shifting things. But we knew about the tension because it was so raw.
Mm. I was trained in open space technology, which is also about holding the space. Although your program, you get everyone involved in holding the space, not just the facilitator. So it's wonderful what you've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridge. And then Sister Emily. Oh.
Thank you so much for your questions. Allow me to really say thank you because you're talking about the situation in my country, Kenya, and for me to see and to hear of the different communities that we are able to participate in these conversations. As I was listening, I was in the back of mind, I was thinking of the synodality, conversations in the spirit. And I was like, well, I'm sitting here with my sisters, the community, and we're like, those are the conversations in the spirit. And this started long before we even heard about this. Kenya is a very interesting country, and especially as the facilitators, presenters said, especially around general elections. But again, when I was listening and the communities involved, the first community, the Borana and the Rendile, and then the Pokomo and the Oromo, mostly the tension is around the resources. And some of them are pastoralists and the others are farmers. And this has always been there have always been tensions between these different communities. And the fact that this team was able to bring them together and to enable them listen to each other is something fascinating. And my question is, how can these very conversations or this method be used, especially currently? Elections that will be in 2027, but then at the moment we are seeing the uprising of the young generation, the Gen Zs. Yesterday, for example, there were chaos in the city of Nairobi. There were shootings and there were deaths. And I'm just wondering, how can these conversations be utilized, probably not only to talk with the young people, but because the tension now is between the young people and the government, even to bring people in the government. These are leaders who are responsible for the peace of the country. How can these conversations be had? Probably, is there a way so that they can be used to especially help in bringing peace and harmony and cohesion in Kenya at the moment? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister, for your question. I'd like to share a little bit about what I see, that if we just start again with ourselves, with the people we know, I have said, and start with having conversation and listening to one another and build that spirit of nonviolence so that people can still protest, that's all right, and they can still go out there, but do it nonviolently. We've seen that happen so effectively in South Korea, where people went out and protest in a nonviolent way, and they were able to get change. So I think nonviolence is key, as people here in the US are also trying to stand up and say something in a nonviolent way. Violence will never change anything. And so like Elizabeth has been working for so long for nonviolence, that is the way to go. And how do we start with the grassroots? And this is such a simple and easy way. I mean, indigenous cultures all over the world have always used forms of conversation to talk to one another, and we can do this. So that's what
Thank
and
you.
then I know that Father, I don't know how much time we have left, so yes.
See, Sang, I know that we have a lot of questions, and I instructed some of you just to write your questions in the chat so we can answer them later, because we don't have enough time to conclude this workshop, and it has been a wonderful time to being with Sang, Teresa, Elizabeth, and Sia.